So in the last video, I showed you guys 3 extremely lightweight, extremely radical bait finesse spools from China. Now 2 of them were for the ALDEBARAN BFS, and for the most part, they're just drop in and start fishing propositions. But the 3rd spool, which was for the 2020 and up Shimano METANIUM, which of course is this spool right here, the KKR S25-30. This spool requires a little bit of modification before you can put it into the METANIUM and start fishing. And in this video, I'm going to show you just how to do that. So let us begin. So I have the spool and all the other items out of the canister, and before I start, I just want to say that this is not going to be a casting video. This is strictly just me showing you how to make the spool ready for fishing. Now if you do want to see some casting videos, I'm going to leave a link either in the description or the comment section of a guy in China who did some casting comparisons between this spool as well as I believe the stock spool and the shallow spool version. And also I just want to let everyone know that this spool is going to be compatible with the 2020 JDM METANIUM 70, the METANIUM MGL 150, which is sold here in the United States. It's also going to work for the silver shallow spool model that came out last year, and it's going to work for the 2023 100 model that's going to come out this year. But it will not work on any other METANIUMs. Alright, so what we have here is an extremely lightweight aluminum brake assembly, which is supposed to house 2 of the METANIUM's centrifugal brake arms. Now you can see it doesn't come with the arms, it just comes with a couple of pieces that you'll need, and of course it's a short spool shaft, so you're gonna need that replacement shaft. And you're probably wondering, well, where do you get the brake arms to fit onto this assembly? Well, if you have a METANIUM, what they want you to do is they want you to pull them off of the stock spool. Alright, so you're supposed to remove 2 of these arms and transfer them over here to the new spool's brake assembly. Now I don't want to take the arms off of my stock METANIUM spool, so what I did was I rummaged around for a Shimano that has the current SVS braking system that I'm probably never going to use, and that spool is going to be the current KAES 150. And I think we can look. Looks like the KAES, well, no, they look about the same size, but the KAES brake arms look a little bit more yellow versus the METANIUM, and that may signify that they're a different weight, probably heavier. But in any event, I'm going to be taking 2 brake arms off of this KAES spool and then transferring them over here. Now how you remove these brake arms is actually pretty easy, and I recommend really only one tool to do it, and that's going to be a set of tweezers that have a pretty sharp end point. Alright, so if you look at the spool and look at the brake arm, you'll see that this gold brass piece on every brake arm, there's one side that's sticking out more than the other. Alright, so that's the side that you want to push on. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your tweezer endpoints and you're just going to push that brass piece out, and it should move out with a nice click, just like that. And then you just take your tweezers and you just pull out the piece, or it's probably going to be easier to use your fingernail to slide that out. Now be careful not to drop this little piece. Alright, it's longer than I thought. But there, it's out. And you just remove the arm just like that. Pretty easy. Now KKR actually provides you with spare brass little pivot pins, as well as these really small pieces of metal, which I'm going to show you what they're for here in a second. But let's do the other side. All right, so remember, you push the end that's sticking out more, which looks to be the right side, and when it pops out, it'll pop out with a nice popping feel, just like that. And I'm just going to use my finger because it's easier than using the tweezers. Now if you have like a safety pin or a sewing needle, you can probably just stick it through and push it straight out, but I know this because I've actually had a one of those old Ray Studios bait finesse spools that require that you use these arms to be transferred over, but yeah, there we go. And I'm not sure where that other pin went. Pretty sure it fell to the floor, but oh well. So now we have our two brake arms. Okay, so quick update. Now as you can see, I've installed one of the brake arms already, and I want to just say that while installation is straightforward, if you have fat fingers, or if you don't have, you know, very fine motor skills with your fingers, you may not want to take on this KKR METANIUM spool, and let me show you why. Okay, now here is one of the brass pins that comes with the KKR spool. Now it's shaped like a nail. There's a flat end on one side, and the other side is actually smaller, but I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera. There's a groove machined into this smaller end, and what goes in that groove are one of these micro little clips. You can see on the end of my finger, that's several of those clips on the end of my finger stuck there. And once you've installed the pin in the brake arm, you're supposed to take one of these clips and clip it into the groove on the small end. And it took me forever to do that, but it's absolutely necessary because I tried to install one of the brake arms without the clip, and I accidentally dropped the spool to the floor, and the brass pin just flew out, and the brake arm just flew somewhere where I couldn't find it. So I had to cannibalize yet another brake arm off that KS spool. But let me see if I can do this for you guys on camera. Okay, so the easiest way to put the arm on and slide the pin through is you take your brake arm, right, and you can see the shape of the arm. There are these two wings or flaps on the side. Okay, now this side is supposed to face towards the spool shaft, and you just take this brake arm and you slide those wings into these two grooves, which is the off position, just like that. So if you want to turn the brake arm off, this is what it's going to look like. Alright, so that kind of holds the brake arm in place, and you can kind of pivot. Hopefully you can see you can pivot this brake arm to line up the brake arm hole with the brake assembly hole, and you take one of the pins that are provided with the KKR spool and just slide it through there. Boom, just like that. Now luckily for you guys, I have excellent fine motor skills for the most part. But now it's time to try to put one of those clips right down on this end right here. Let's see if I can do that on camera. Now the great part is, I guess KKR knows people are going to mess up, so they provided a lot of spare brass pins and a lot of spare little clips, which I advise that you store somewhere in case you need to use them. Alright, so I've pinpointed one clip, and doing this looking through the camera LCD screen is going to be tough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finger and pop out that smaller end that has the groove, so it's sticking out, and I'm going to try to use my finger, and wow, I got lucky and the clip kind of just fell right about where it needed to go. And that was extreme luck. So I'm going to try to maneuver it ever so gently and slide it down into that groove. Boom, wow, that took way shorter than the first clip. But there we go. Now during the cast, these brass pins are going to be held in place. They're not going to fly off and get lost. But let's go ahead and install this spool into the METANIUM and see how it works. But before we do that, these brake arms are on because they're pivoting. Now if you want to turn one or both off, you just snap it in just like that, and now it's off. So this one's on, this one's off. So I took the stock spool out, and now it's time to insert this little plastic, I guess, replacement for the missing long piece of the stock spool shaft. And wow, I'm gonna have to cut this out. Alright, so here it is, and you can see there's a spring loaded on it. All we have to do is unscrew the spool tension and insert. Now you can see I've strategically lined up the drag star arms so when the spool tension comes off, it's not stuck under one of the arms. There we go. Just slide that in, and I guess they want it spring loaded. Okay, and then just slide the spool in. Now this micro bearing with that black housing is not a very quality piece in the fact that they keep separating themselves, but boom, there we go. Okay, so you can see the spool tension is really loose. There's a lot of side-to-side play. Let's tighten that up. And that shaft piece is made of plastic. Just a hair of side-to-side play, which is how I like to run BFS spools, but let's go ahead and make sure, I should have made sure that both arms are on. Alright, so both arms are on. Okay, external brake is on, what is that number? I can't tell. Looks to be 1. Okay, there's a piece of crud on there. It's actually 3. So we're gonna turn this brake dial all the way to 1. And this spool, it's actually pretty smooth, but you can see it spins forever for being so light. Alright, so let's turn the external dial all the way up to 6. Let's see if it slows the spool down. It does slow it down significantly, but man, this is going to be a fast spool. I wonder if 2 brake arms is going to be enough. But like I said, there's going to be a link to a couple of casting videos on this spool that this guy in China did, and he did it with some lures that I consider heavy lures for bait finesse, but we're going to try some super light lures in my testing video. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the spool tension up a little bit. Okay, by tightening the spool tension, you can see the spin time has been reduced. So yeah, I'm probably going to have to use a lot of spool tension in my cast testing. But there we go, guys. Installation of the KKR spool for the mighty METANIUM. If you want to go bait finesse with your METANIUM and you want to keep the stock superior centrifugal brakes of Shimano's SBS Infinity, this looks like it might be just what you're looking for. But before you order, you may want to wait until I take this reel out on the water and do some cast tests. Until then, thanks a lot.